Have you ever bled your soul dry to save someone, only to watch them plunge a serrated blade into your back? Your sacrifice didn't buy their loyalty. It guaranteed your execution. Uncover the terrifying psychological truth of why the people you save are destined to destroy you. Have you ever severed your own veins, bleeding your soul dry to pull someone out of a suffocating abyss, only to watch them walk away, turn back, and plunge a serrated blade squarely between your shoulder blades? You sacrificed your time, your peace, your absolute loyalty. You stood between them and total ruin, compromising your own well-being to shield them from the fire. Yet when the smoke cleared, there was no gratitude. Instead, you were met with venomous whispers in the shadows, a relentless assassination of your character, and a sudden, freezing hostility that defied all logic. It is a baffling, terrifying cruelty that shatters your reality. It leaves you paralyzed on the cold floor of your own life, questioning your sanity, desperately pleading with an indifferent universe. What did I do wrong? Was my love flawed? Did I not bleed enough for them? Stop tearing yourself apart. I need you to hear a cold, unvarnished truth that will shake the very foundation of your worldview. You did absolutely nothing wrong. Your only crime, your solitary, fatal mistake, was fundamentally misunderstanding the dark, terrifying labyrinth of human psychology. Before we strip away the comforting lies society feeds us and dissect the chilling mind of the betrayer, I urge you to hit the subscribe button. Your subscription is the vital pulse that supports this channel, giving us the unwavering motivation to continue producing these profound, hard-hitting explorations into the human condition for you. Myth Eryndor welcomes you to a sanctuary of absolute truth, where we abandon sugar-coated fairy tales to confront the world exactly as it is. Today, we are going to tear apart the illusion of charity through the unforgiving, razor-sharp lens of the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. Society has relentlessly conditioned us to believe that offering a lifeline is an act of pure celestial grace, and that receiving it is a moment of humble, loving reception. Nietzsche violently disagreed, exposing a much darker reality operating beneath the surface. To comprehend why you were betrayed by the very person you saved, you must shatter your conventional moral compass and look at the invisible humiliation you inadvertently inflicted upon them. When you swoop in as the savior, you believe you are merely fixing a problem, but to the desperate receiver, you are shining a blinding, agonizing spotlight directly on their supreme inadequacy. You are demonstrating with suffocating clarity that they completely failed to navigate their own existence. Every piece of life-saving advice you offer, every resource you sacrifice, every string you pull to rescue them silently screams a devastating decree: you are incredibly weak, and I am undeniably strong. You need me to survive, but I do not need you. To the human ego, which survives entirely on the fragile illusion of competence and autonomy, this is not a beautiful gift of grace. It is a psychological assault. It is a crushing insult that strips them bare. Yes, they will smile at you. They will weep and utter words of endless thanks in the heat of the moment because they are drowning, and their immediate survival depends on your outstretched hand. But deep within the darkest corridors of their subconscious, you have planted a heavy, suffocating seed of profound shame. You have become a walking monument to their helplessness. And here is the most terrifying law of human nature. You must now accept shame, when trapped in the human heart, never transforms into love. It ferments in the dark, mutating silently until it erupts into an absolute and unforgiving hatred. To understand how this suffocating shame ferments into absolute and unforgiving hatred, we must examine the terrifying mental gymnastics the human ego performs to survive its own inadequacy. Every single time they look at you, they do not see a selfless savior. They see a living, breathing mirror reflecting their most agonizing failures. You are the undeniable proof that they could not stand on their own 2 feet, that they were entirely unequipped for the brutal demands of existence. At first, they attempt to carry this immense debt of gratitude, but gratitude is an incredibly heavy psychological burden for a deeply fragile soul. It requires profound humility. It requires the constant, painful acknowledgement that they are lesser, that they are dependent, and that their survival was a borrowed gift rather than an earned achievement. The human psyche simply cannot sustain this level of chronic humiliation without collapsing entirely in on itself. Therefore, a subconscious mechanism of self-preservation violently activates in the dark. To protect themselves from the crushing weight of their own inadequacy, their mind begins to rewrite reality. They start searching frantically for flaws in your armor. They meticulously scan your words, your actions, and your underlying intentions for any slight imperfection they can magnify into a cardinal sin. This is where the terrifying mutation occurs. They convince themselves that your help was not an act of grace at all, but a calculated act of manipulation. They persuade their fragile ego that you only saved them to assert your dominance, to stroke your own vanity, or to keep them perpetually chained to you in indebtedness. By transforming you from a selfless rescuer into a calculating villain, they achieve a twisted psychological victory. They no longer have to feel grateful. Instead, they become entitled to feel aggrieved. They morph the narrative so drastically that they become the oppressed victim fighting for freedom, and you become the tyrannical oppressor holding a moral debt over their head. This cognitive distortion is the exact moment the poison seeps irrecoverably into the groundwater of your relationship. You will start to notice the subtle, chilling shifts. You will face sudden defensiveness when you offer harmless advice. You will endure unprovoked flashes of irritation. You will feel a cold distance that seems to materialize out of thin air. You are actively witnessing the frantic thrashing of an ego trying to drown its own shame by drowning you. They cannot tolerate the debt of life you handed them. And because they fundamentally lack the strength to repay it with equal nobility, they decide the only way to balance the scales is to utterly devalue the currency of your sacrifice. They begin to tell themselves and eventually others that they were never really drowning that badly, that they could have swam to shore on their own, and that your intervention was overbearing and uninvited. You are no longer their rescuer. You are the uncomfortable reminder of their weakness, and human beings will violently destroy anything that reminds them they are weak. Once their mind has successfully rewritten history and painted you as the antagonist, the resentment demands a public execution to finalize its twisted liberation. This is why the betrayal you experience is rarely a quiet, peaceful departure. It is an active, brutal, and calculated destruction of your character. To truly free themselves from the psychological debt they owe you, they must unequivocally destroy the creditor. As long as your reputation remains intact, as long as you are viewed by the world as a good, moral, and generous person, their internal narrative of victimhood is violently threatened. They must assassinate your character to validate their betrayal to themselves. This is the exact moment the serrated blade is driven squarely into your back. They will take your deepest secrets, the sacred vulnerabilities you shared in moments of intimate trust, and ruthlessly weaponize them. They will whisper venom into the ears of your mutual friends, spinning elaborate tapestries of lies where your genuine care is maliciously framed as toxic control. They will accuse you of the very things they themselves are guilty of, projecting their deep-seated darkness onto your light with a staggering psychopathic lack of remorse. You will suddenly find yourself standing trial in a court of public opinion, where you are not even allowed to speak, condemned by the very person whose life you kept intact. And the most agonizing part of this execution is the terrifying coldness with which it is carried out. The person who once wept in your arms, who swore you were their guardian angel, will look you dead in the eyes with the deadened, empty gaze of a complete stranger. There is no guilt in their eyes, because in their warped reality they are enacting righteous justice. By tearing you down from the pedestal, they bring you down to their level, or preferably buried deep below it. If you are a monster, then they owe you absolutely nothing. If you are a tyrant, then their betrayal is not a cowardly stab in the back, but a heroic act of rebellion. This is the dark, terrifying alchemy of betrayal. They burn your sanity, your peace, and your hard-earned reputation to the ground, eagerly using the ashes to build a false throne for their own inflated ego. It is a spectacular, breathtaking cruelty, born not from any of your actual flaws, but from their absolute inability to exist in the same room as their own immense shame. But to truly dissect this tragedy and prevent it from ever destroying you again, we must bravely rotate the mirror and force ourselves to stare directly into the uncomfortable darkness of our own hidden motives. Why did you bleed so willingly for someone who never truly asked you to be their ultimate savior? We must forcefully strip away the comforting illusion of our own pure, saintly altruism and ask why we are so magnetically drawn to broken people in the first place. The harsh, unspoken truth is that playing the savior feeds a profound hidden hunger within our own ego. When you find someone shattered, lost, and heavily dependent on your strength, you are momentarily granted the intoxicating illusion of omnipotence. You become entirely indispensable. In the act of rescuing them from their chaos, you quietly anesthetize your own internal insecurities, because as long as you are intensely focused on fixing their existence, you do not have to confront the terrifying emptiness echoing in your own life. We secretly use the brokenness of others as a dark mirror to reflect back our own imagined divinity. We desperately want to be the hero, the immovable anchor, the one exceptional person they cannot possibly live without. And this is the fatal error that directly sets the stage for our own execution. By overinvesting, By continuously crossing the natural boundaries of human autonomy, we unconsciously strip them of their essential agency. We begin to treat them as personal projects rather than sovereign equals. We mistakenly believe that by pouring an infinite, exhausting amount of love, time, and resources into a bottomless void, we can somehow purchase their permanent, unwavering loyalty. But love, bought with the heavy coin of debt, is a psychological hostage situation, not a genuine human connection. You did not just offer them a hand up. You accidentally built an invisible cage made of immense gratitude and expected them to live inside it, happily forever. Your inevitable betrayal was written the very second you decided you cared more about their survival than they did. You tied your inherent value to your specific utility in their life, silently demanding that they validate your existence by succeeding under your careful guidance. When we fiercely recognize this uncomfortable truth, the agonizing sting of their betrayal begins to profoundly transform. It is no longer a bewildering cosmic injustice, but a predictable, unavoidable, mathematical equation of human psychology. You demanded an entirely unnatural dynamic, and the human spirit inevitably rebelled against the suffocating weight of your relentless, overbearing salvation. Acknowledging our own complicity in this toxic dynamic is not meant to break us, but to brutally and beautifully liberate us from the vicious, endlessly repeating cycle of the savior trap. You must deeply understand that true empowerment, both for yourself and for those you encounter, requires a radical, uncompromising shift in how you view love and support. You are not a free rehabilitation center for fundamentally broken souls, and it is a supreme blind arrogance to believe you can permanently shield anyone from the roaring fires of their own destiny. Friedrich Nietzsche championed the profound concept of amor fati, the absolute love of one's fate, which unequivocally includes the necessary agonizing suffering that forces a human being to evolve. When you constantly rush in to cushion someone's fall, you are violently stealing their rock bottom. You are robbing them of the profound, transformative pain that is absolutely required to forge genuine, lasting strength. Moving forward, you must embrace a much harder, colder, yet infinitely more compassionate form of love. It is the fierce love that steps back and allows someone to directly face the severe consequences of their own actions. You can stand safely at the edge of the abyss and offer a rope, but you must absolutely refuse to climb down into the darkness and carry them out on your own exhausted back. If they refuse to climb, you must have the immense psychological fortitude to let go of the rope entirely and walk away without a shred of guilt. This is not cruelty. It is the highest, most profound form of respect for their personal autonomy. You must fiercely protect your inner peace, strictly reserving your deepest loyalties, your hard-earned resources, and your bleeding heart only for those who stand beside you as strong equals, not as desperate, draining dependents. You must fundamentally rebuild your identity so that your intrinsic self-worth is no longer tethered to how useful you are to struggling people. The agonizing era of your invisible humiliation is officially over. Let them have their bitter resentment. Let them eagerly spin their false narratives and whisper their pathetic lies in the dark to anyone who will listen. Their distorted perception of you is none of your business. It is merely the fragile armor they wear to hide from the terrifying reality of their own failures. You have a magnificent life to live, an empire of your own to build, and a soul to fiercely nourish. Step out of the suffocating shadows of their ungratefulness, wash the blood from your hands, and walk unapologetically into the brilliant, uncompromising light of your own sovereign existence. Conclusion. In the end, the tragic cycle of the savior and the saved is a profound testament to the fragile complexities of human psychology. When we attempt to rescue others from the natural consequences of their own lives, we do not forge bonds of eternal gratitude. Instead, we inadvertently breed an intoxicating resentment born of their own unbearable shame. Betrayal in this dynamic is not a sudden anomaly, but a calculated psychological necessity for the rescued to reclaim their lost autonomy and shatter the mirror reflecting their inadequacy. Yet the ultimate revelation lies in confronting our own ego, the quiet, dark hunger that uses the brokenness of others to validate our own worth and anesthetize our internal voids. True liberation demands that we decisively sever this toxic dependency. We must strip away the illusion that we can or should shield anyone from the agonizing fires of their own necessary evolution. Letting go of the savior complex is not an act of abandonment, but the ultimate expression of respect for human agency. It is a declaration of profound self-worth that refuses to be measured by endless sacrifice. By washing our hands of debts that can never genuinely be repaid, we free ourselves to build relationships rooted in equality, mutual respect, and sovereign strength. The ashes of their betrayal are not your ruin. They are the fertile soil from which your uncompromising, unburdened future is fiercely born. Profound lesson. You cannot permanently shield anyone from the necessary struggles of their own destiny, and attempting to do so will inevitably destroy you both. Love and support should never be used as a psychological currency to buy loyalty or to mask your own internal emptiness. True compassion requires the immense strength to let people hit their own rock bottom so they can forge their own genuine resilience. How to apply this to your life? Immediately stop treating the people in your life as personal rehabilitation projects. Assess your current relationships and ruthlessly identify where you are overinvesting or doing the work that someone else should be doing for themselves. Establish rigid, unapologetic boundaries. If a friend, partner, or family member is spiraling, you may offer them a tool or a piece of advice, but you must absolutely refuse to step in and fix the problem for them. Redirect the massive amounts of energy you previously spent on saving others toward building your own life, your goals, and your inner peace. Moving forward, strictly reserve your deepest emotional investments for individuals who stand beside you as self-sufficient equals not as perpetual victims demanding your continuous sacrifice. A question for you. Have you ever poured your heart into trying to save someone only to have them turn against you in the end? Please take a moment to share your perspective or personal story in the comments section below so our community can read, learn, and draw strength from each other's experiences. If this video resonated with you, please hit the subscribe button to support the channel. Your support gives us the absolute motivation to continue creating more deep, insightful content for you in the future.